facilitate investment.
Let me invite Commissioner Maurice Seru, who is representing the Ministry of Health in Uganda, to come and give us
Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, UK, Uganda, and the host, Uganda. Good morning and welcome to this workshop. But due to other competing priorities, she asked me to stand in for her. And could get Senate, sometimes she may come in and talk to us. Therefore, I'm not going to read her speech. I'm going to give my own opening remarks. You're in Entebbe here, please. I know many of you, when I listen, many of you are academicians, researchers, but please take off time. Down there we have a zoo and see what the Power of Africa has to offer. And unfortunately, for those who have never been to Uganda, Dennis did this favor. He put you in Entebbe. That means some of you from here will fly back. But since we are finishing early tomorrow, you can go and see Kampala, so that you have something to tell when you go back to your homes. I think, Dennis, what you've spoken about South Africa is very touching. And the more reason that our leaders of the continent, whether they knew whether they had that information or not, they share 60% of a vaccine in the continent. Yes, is it a dream? Could be, but I think we are here to make it, turn it into reality. One, of course, the road won't be easy. 200 and 240 is around the corner, and we have a lot to do. One, as I think as we'll hear from other speakers, the regulatory framework we have on the continent at the moment, how many of our regulatory authorities have reached that maturity to be able to regulate vaccine production? There's a lot of work we have to do in that area. Two, do we have the critical skills? I've heard from many manufacturers, as Dr. Nazim said, who was the CEO of KPI, we churn out a lot of graduates, but are they fit for the job? So we really have to develop that critical skill. That's another area. Then funds. So money is out there, but how are we going to tap it? It's good, again, Senior Nazim talks about funds being available. That was Africa Development Bank. I insist Africa Development Bank, because what we're going to do here, we're going to want to produce vaccine. So mobilization of funds. So then again, we need mindset change. We are all manufacturers. Dennis has said we have South Africa, 5. What is the market? If all of you manufacturers say to do vaccine, what is the market? So we have to think, stop working in silos. If we decide that we have a plant in, I won't mention countries, in country A, let it be. Then let another country do something so that we can benefit in economy of scales, we produce for the region, so that at the end of the day, the production cost will go down. I think I've made my case. I want to thank you so much.
Commissioner Seru, thank you very much for that opening remark. Back in 2007, Conversations of Africa, which of course was started by NEPAD. And fast forward, we also have the Partnership for Africa Vaccines.
support continued financially sustainable access. And therefore, there are two parallel activities that we have undertaken in terms of the African market shaping strategy. That is to ensure that we have the buy-in and creating ownership within Africa, and the other is collaborating with the necessary and to inform the financial sustainable vaccines, member states and suppliers to participate in our pilot co-procurement mechanism. This also is facilitated by a legal instrument where we are working with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa by developing a legal instrument that will support and ensure that we have commitments from our governments to ensure that at least they can have preferential procurement of African
Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
ensure that we develop a financing mechanism to support. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead, Akona. We can hear you.
Okay. To support so basically, we're working on a financing mechanism to support our from just, or not only from the regional supply side, but also to be able to access the global demand side. As you all know, more than 70% of our vaccines are actually procured through Gavi, and so it's really important to ensure that we're working very closely with them
Thank you. Um, you mentioned so many things. I don't even know where to start from, but great presentation. We've just given you a round of applause from this side. Let's give us some love again. Akona Shangela from the Africa CDC there, breaking it down. You mentioned a number of things that will be at the center of our discussions in our plenary session. Of course, key among them is mobilizing the market. For any person here, it also is a business. You're sinking $5 million. There must be some guarantees that have to be made in terms of access to the market. No one is going to sink $5 million, $50 million to actually be there and look for market. So there must be guarantees from the big players like Gavi who actually procure these pharmaceutical products. And I think at the center of this is the Africa CDC to also join the advocacy. And I'm glad to hear that you are doing something about that, Akona, to actually push the big players and the people who procure big volumes, that they will procure from us. It doesn't make any business sense whatsoever to sink $50 million and then you have to struggle to look for market. I think we're also optimistic about the AFCTA, what comes out of it. I don't know, some of you are looking at me saying, okay, will this ever come to light? The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where we get to actually look at Africa as a single market, that if a vaccine is actually produced in Senegal, that Uganda will not go to Pfizer or will not go to, Johnson & Johnson to procure from them. So I think what Akona really talked about is the market, investment in research and development. I don't know where we are as a continent. I would love to hear from you in the panel discussion in terms of R&D. Are we really taking it serious? Or there's little investment in research and development, and role to actually push for investment in research and development. It's quite a big investment, and normally it's governments that sink this money. I don't know if the private sector is sinking a lot of money in R&D. Pfizer in South Africa that has really worked on very well. I remember the deal that was closed between Pfizer and BioVec at the time, South Africa giving guarantee of the market to Pfizer and therefore transfer their technology to manufacture directly. And it's, I think, doing well. I'll be happy to hear from you on how that technology transfer is playing out. Key significant issues there that came through from Akona. I think the other thing that really captured my mind is the access to finance. Everyone is saying, who can give us $50 million at a given interest? I'm happy to note that their money and to sink, and of course that goes into the cost of production. Will you produce a vial that is cheaper than Pfizer? And I think that costing is a very poor bit, because why would you buy a vaccine from Senegal, which is 2 times expensive, compared to that is produced at Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer? So how do we be able to actually reduce on the cost of doing business so that we're actually able to come up with a good product on the market, but as well as cost effective? The other aspect, I think, just trying to summarize what Akona talked about. Akona talked about the regulatory frameworks, and she highlighted on the aspect of developing regional centers of excellence for regulation. Already, as you may all know, we are now working with the Africa Medicines Agency that is going to be headquartered in Kigali, Rwanda, and haven't actually finished the ratification process. I think we only have about 27? We haven't really fully given in our instruments of power. Hopefully this can be done. To take your product through NDA, for example, and you have to take it to South Africa and it's checked again and it's checked again and it's checked again. So aspects of regulation are going to be very core to achieving this dream. Akona, thank you very much. Those are some of the highlights that I managed to capture from your presentation. People have been asking, and of course, infrastructure development. Thinking a lot of money. Manufacturing projects in Africa. Before I came for this conversation, I did some research, and quite a fascinating facility in Egypt, in Morocco, in Senegal, in South Africa. I think that's Biovac. I think Rwanda is opening up a little bit. In Uganda, yes, we also have some investment in Uganda. Dennis will listen to certainly know what's happening there. Interesting conversations I can promise you today we are going to have. I am really, really eager to learn. Akona, people are asking for your presentation, so kindly please share it with Dr. Chibira or the Secretariat so that we can email it to the participants here. Very, very great information that you just gave us there. So Akona, thank you very, very much for that presentation. I was also happy to learn that the market, pharmaceutical market in Africa, has been growing at 4%, $4 billion, and then expected to grow by what, 7 billion over the next 5 years. Fascinating numbers there. That means that for the people who are seeking to invest, the market is there. I'll hear from you later on as we continue. Thank you very much, Akona, and thank you everyone for listening in quite closely. We are going to go for a photo. After that, we do a cup of tea, and we're going to be coming back for great stuff, including a panel discussion and hearing from some of you. Let's go and have a photo. Where should we have the photo? Outside, the photographers? Do you want us to have it here? Okay, let's have the photo here with this background. Hopefully it's enough for us to fit. I kindly invite you to please come to the podium and we have a group photo, after which we will go for a cup of tea. Okay, do we have a stepping platform? How will people go up here? It's quite steep here. Oh, there is, okay. People prefer outside. I think outside would be great. Okay, yeah. Let's do it outside. Let's go outside and just get that group photo done. Akona Shangela, thank you. It's really been an honor having you. And we certainly hope that you can join us for the rest of the day. The photograph, Akona, you want to join us for a photograph? And tea. Grab yourself a cup of tea, and we will be involving you. Akona Shangela, thank you very much from the Africa CDC. Good to see you, and quite a great conversation there. Let's go for a break, and we'll be right back. Let's go and do a photo, and then we do a cup of tea, and I'll be back to steer you into another conversation. Good morning. on the assessment of policy and legal and operational environment of pharmaceutical manufacturing associations in Africa. Dr. Chibira Karibu, come and give us your presentation, and then we'll have a panel discussion, and then we'll do a plenary. After that, we'll break for lunch, and after lunch, we will come back and have another panel, and then we'll be sure to release you early to go and see Lake Victoria or visit the beaches in Entebbe, so that you don't just get from the hotel and back to the airport. How many of you have been there? You go to a city from the airport to the hotel, and then the conference it's the same hotel, and then the next time you're on the next hotel taxi back to the airport. I think that we'll ensure that for this conference you get some time to go out and see the beauty of Uganda. Dr. Chibira, you're very welcome. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. I'm happy to, these are preliminary findings, and this meeting, as I mentioned earlier, is also going to be a respondent to this study. And so findings, we are going to beef up the findings of this report from this meeting. So this was what we conducted was an assessment of legal policy and operational environment surrounding in Africa. And for a little background, as I mentioned earlier, I think Nazim and colleagues, you could correct me. These associations started after 2000. They're fairly new associations, and they started off manufacturers meeting and thinking there was need for them to come together as a common voice to amplify their challenges and to work together for common good. I think I've been introduced before, but yes, I'm the National Coordinator of the Medicines Transparency Alliance in Uganda. I'm happy to have colleagues from other countries also joining us in this meeting. And also, I'm the Executive Officer at Dumake Global Health, which is a fairly new organization. And at Dumake, a little bit about Meta. Meta is a multi-stakeholder platform to improve access to health commodities. And it was first introduced in 2008 as a project by the British Department for International Development. And I'm happy to say that here I have coordinators also from Kenya and Zambia. So Lioka and Dorothy, my sister, at the back there. But also, when Meta was started in Uganda in 2008, I was on the secretariat, and I started coordinating it in 2012. And our founding chair is here, co-chair Nazim is the founder. So Robina is here on the council. But also Maurice is one of the founders. Maurice, commissioner at the ministry, is one of the founding. So the core principles of Meta are transparency and accountability. And our priorities are availability, the cost, quality, and rational use of medicines. To make Meta, since it's a platform bringing together it cannot be a legal entity. So to make global health handles, it's a fiscal agent, but also handles its communication. But at DoMake, we work to advance innovative global health solutions through research, capacity building, and policy engagement for health system strengthening. Into what brought us here, association. As we all know, Africa accounts for 25 because for the bulk of infectious diseases, HIV, but also for 100 women that died due to maternal causes, 99 of them are from the African continent. And also 50% of underchild deaths are here. So real need for healthcare and for medicines is actually here on our continent. And yet we only consume 1% of the global healthcare expenditure. As it is, 1 in 3 people in the developing world lack access to essential medicines. But we have a big market. The value of the pharmaceutical industry in Africa is estimated at 65 billion. By 2030. In sub-Saharan Africa, it's slightly less. So, because sub-Saharan Africa is actually is where the biggest population of Africans is, but you can see our consumption there of medicines is quite low, for just 14 billion out of the 65 for the African continent. But 70 to 90% of medicines are imported, mostly from China and India. As we've had the discussion before, this dependence on imports, unreliable supply chains. And that's why there is a big voice, local pharmaceutical production. Some people do not like to. I think local reminds them of. But so, about of the sector, the associations are the voice. And that's why we thought we needed to give this discussion a whole conference. Those that were here June 12th to 14th, we had another conference talking about vaccine manufacturing. But in this particular meeting, we want to see how can these associations play a more profound role in vaccine manufacturing on the continent. The key questions, really briefly, wanted to look at the governance of these associations and the financing. We wanted to see what roles the associations played, but also what roles were prescribed for them in policy frameworks. We wanted to see how they engage with governments, but also how they engage with communities across the region. And we utilized qualitative methods. We did a mapping of the players. We did document review of policies, reports, and publications. And the one thing I remember mentioning very profoundly to my senior academic, Gertrude, is that I looked up over 100,000 articles through a systematic review and focused on over 4,000 of those which had the subject matter I was looking for. There was nothing about the pharmaceutical associations. And yet I know associations have done a lot of work. And so this work needs to be out there. Otherwise then it is seen that they are not doing anything. Okay, that's part of the result, so but I just needed to mention it. And then we did key informant interviews with most of these associations. We had a validation meeting on 14th June, and today we are also going to have more input into this study. In terms of findings, well, these are the associations we looked at. At the continental level, we have the Federation of the African Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. At the East African level, we have, and FAPMA is represented today by both the chairman and vice chairman. We have at the East African level, we have the Federation of the East African Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. At SADC region, we had the South African Generics Manufacturers Association, SAGMA, the chair is here. WAPMA, which is the West African compatriot, wasn't able to make it to this meeting. And then there are the country level associations, and we selected those where this project is in 9 countries. Some of them are here, listed here. In terms of the global policy framework, and I will not bore you with all of this, but what we found out from the global level to country level, on the East African Regional Pharmaceutical Planning, Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Plan of Action, actually mentioned pharmaceutical manufacturing associations. And that could be that the associations actually, the policy makers, do not know a lot about the associations. And that for me is an issue that the associations need to be more visible and present in policy making fora so that they are seen. In terms of governance, we saw that these are voluntary non-profit organizations. They are governed by constitutions. They have elected board members, as stated there, including chairpersons and below. We saw that the secretariats are actually quite lean. Secretariats were either 1 or 2 persons, which is really lean if you have to get work moving. And the key issues we saw is that the secretariats depended mostly on donor projects. At the moment, most of them are actually run on a voluntary basis. Usually hosted by the chairperson. So where the chairperson has some offices, then that's where the secretariat will be. But they have limited visibility. We didn't see social media. We went to try and see if there was social media anywhere. And you know, social media is now one way to reach out. We couldn't find social media presence. We couldn't find websites, except for, I think, CAPI, the Kenyan one. Kenyan one had some social media and a bit of a website. So at least CAPI did better there. But these are issues that we could look at, simple things that we could look at. In terms of duties, I think in addition to the duties that were mentioned by our keynote speakers that associations could do, of course, a platform for common voice that was mentioned earlier, research that has been really amplified this morning in the keynote, that they already do. They prepare position papers, policy papers, which they, for engagements, I know that Nazim was very pivotal in pushing for ring-fencing of at least 12%, 35 now, the 37 commodities where the verification fees, which could be a tax, was pushed from 2% to 12% in Uganda. And it has shown that just because of that, the market for the local industry actually grew. So they do organize lobby and advocacy engagements, they train members, they share information and opportunities that could arise. They represent private sector on a number of regional and continental advisory bodies like the African Business Forum. the Africans Medicines Regulatory Harmonization, and the Zazibona is the Regulatory Harmonization initiative for SADC. And they also broker partnerships between innovators for technology transfer. They review technical documents. They are also members of employee unions, so they negotiate wages in terms for employees. In terms of financing, the two modes: fees from members. Members have subscription fees which they pay annually, mostly around $500, and then donations, grants and donations. And these and the key issues we saw there is that members' contributions were about 10 to 30% of budgets. Money that runs these associations was from donor funds. So UNIDO played a big role, GIZ has played a big role, but there was no project currently running from these donors, and maybe you could correct me if I missed, or maybe if there's a project in the pipeline. But at the moment, these donors were not supporting these associations. We asked if they saw possibility of government funding. Unfortunately, many of them said, you know, we don't see government funding because we are like also a pressure group. We don't think government will fund us to push them. But also a weak association, maybe, I don't know if it's good for government. We can hear if a weak association, if from Maurice, if a weak association is good, or you would like a strong association. But many didn't see a possibility for government to give them support. In terms of collaborations, those are quite many. And as I mentioned, some, of course, Meta, which I work for, we see some members of these associations have also been members of Meta, but also in Zambia, I know that manufacturers are members of Meta. The limited engagements with civil society were through some corporate social responsibility outreaches, maybe some civil society organizations or some initiatives ask for some medicine to go and hold a medical camp. So that was the only avenue that they were engaging. So there is an opportunity there. That civil society is actually here and is looking to amplify voices, and sometimes civil society can also reach where manufacturers cannot reach. And so there is a low-lying fruit there for manufacturers to foster collaboration with civil society. Key learnings from this study was that pharmaceutical manufacturer associations are fairly new on the continent, as I said. They are beyond 2010 and, you know, so they are really new. And I think this is an opportunity to grow them. They are, however, soundly governed. At the regional economic communities, but also country level. They are very well organized. They have done successful initiatives, as the one I've mentioned, the 12% verification fees and the import charges in Uganda. I think that's a successful one. But they have also heavily been involved in these regional policy documents, but also at the African Union level. They've been heavily involved. But there is no funding. The manufacturers who are members do not want to contribute. The donors have moved away. And so associations, you're struggling. I think that when, you know, because there's a lot of talk about vaccine manufacturing, the vaccine manufacturers came up and created their own initiative. I don't think they would have created that if the national and regional associations were strong. So we need to find ways of pulling up our socks. As I mentioned, successful initiatives have been implemented. So that's a starting point. We can always build on that. Oh, I think I've already mentioned that. The issue of funding, I think I don't need to mention that. Activities are minimal and depend mostly on volunteers. We've seen a lot of, but it's been pushed by individuals who happen to be chairpersons. I know that Gertrude, my senior, is here. Without her, I don't know how SAGMA would. It's been very strong in the yeah. What we want is FAPMA to be strong without Emmanuel. Although it's good that, you know, if you have a good player like Messi on your team, who is Emmanuel playing now, you're happy. Barcelona will be strong or whatever. So, but you need to plan beyond that Messi. So, but also volunteerism. How far can we take volunteerism in these associations? Is it tenable? So it's an issue on the next panel that colleagues, my senior colleagues, you have to address to see how do we all help you move these associations. We are here. We are passionate about access. We can't do it without you. The key recommendations that come out of this study. We have to strengthen financing streams for these secretariats of these associations to be functional. I don't know how, but I think together we can come up with solutions. Where can funds come from to ensure that the secretariats are more vibrant? Maybe they're functional now, but more vibrant is what we need. How do we increase collaborations with academia and civil society? I mentioned earlier that civil society is a low-lying fruit for the associations to work with, but I know that SAGMA to academia. So academia is even contributing in terms of research, in terms of subscriptions. Is something other associations can do. I don't know how much it costs to make websites or maintain social media, but I think associations, you have to do this. Because every time, I've talked about Do Make Global Health, I'm sure people have gone, or they've gone to the, we have a QR code here to scan and go to the website to see, do these people really exist? So even for the associations, when we hear about associations, we go onto the internet to search for you. We need to ensure more legitimacy through presence in the policy formulating processes. As I mentioned, these documents, at the bare minimum, should show that you participated in the policy process. So when we go to the annexes to see who has participated, we should find the associations. We are not finding you there. So you need to find these government institutions and participate in these policy formulation processes. You need to increase collaboration with governments, presence on technical working groups, and other advisory bodies. I know that businessmen do not want to waste time. Even being in this meeting, spending a day, I think is a very big sacrifice. So we thank the businessmen who can spare time to just come here and talk. When you're not on the table, then policy is formulated without you. We need to publish. We need to publish. Work with academia, work with civil society. Let's get our material out there to the public. There is a summary report. It has Can I see the title? Can I see the title? No. There's a new report which is just. It has summary report. We couldn't print the entire. Yes, this report here is a summary report of this study. Once it's complete, I'll share a full report. But you can read more as or issues you do not agree with in the report. You can let us know. But we think that by discussing these issues that have come up in this report, we shall be able to strengthen the associations to contribute to this very big discussion on vaccine manufacturing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis Chibira, for that report. Interesting findings there. I need to add that associations also need to work with the media. I heard Dr. Chibira talking about civil society, the academia. I think that the media is supposed to amplify those voices and your findings. I thought it was in the journalism associations only. Also, the pharmaceutical associations have a challenge of volunteering. Many of these associations, people give their time, their energy to really ensure that they survive, but the members are supposed to actually hold them together. So when I hear from the report that we are not paying our commitment fees, for example, then how does the Secretariat stand? How are we able to actually pay the salaries of people who have made it their everyday job to do the advocacy work? We have that in the journalism fraternity. You know, except if there is some sort of legal framework that is binding, that is also tricky. I mean, look at the East African community, for example, where we are not honoring our commitments. We haven't paid as a country our full commitments. Tanzania hasn't met its own commitment. We are admitting new people. We are admitting Somalia to come on board. We just recently admitted Congo. We have South Sudan is in its arrears. So associations, communities, they're just a difficult lot altogether. And yet they play a very significant role. So I am really Dr. Chiwi reading that paper in detail so that we can pave a way forward. I just wanted to add that Dr. Chibira said that this paper is still work in progress. And so any suggestions or comments that are made here will go a long way in improving the paper. And perhaps, Dr. Chibira, I don't know how we can popularize this paper. The thing with publications like these normally remain on the shelves of, of these spaces, but we need to put them out and disseminate it in a much better way. We're going to discuss this paper with a panel to sort of throw in some context to what Dr. Chibira has been mentioning. And the chairperson of this panel is Dorothy Okumu from Meta, Kenya. Okemo, sorry. Sorry, we have a lot of Okumus here. My apologies. Dorothy Okemo here, who is going to be chairing this panel. But let me invite the panelists. Here we have Nimrod Muhumuza from Ahaki. Nimrod is a researcher, someone who does a lot of think tanking. I don't know, we may need to actually put this up a bit. I don't know how, because this thing is behind here. So Nimrod, maybe just jump. I'll help the ladies. Nimrod Muhumuza is from Ahaki. I want to also invite my dear friend who I met today, Nazim. Mohammed, Nazim, karibu sana. Welcome back home. It's good to have you. I also am happy to invite Dr. Gertrude. Dr. Gertrude, the other name that has is just so difficult to pronounce. Oh, Abuto. Dr. Gertrude Karibu. I also have Dr. Emmanuel Muguru also to come in here and take his seat. Dr. Emmanuel Karibu. Dorothy, this is your panel. Karibu sana. Over to you. And I'm looking forward. We will then give the audience an opportunity to participate in the panel session. Please, Karibu, you can have a seat there. There's an extra chair for you.
Right. Thank you, Solo, for the great moderation, and thank you for Uganda for being serious with affirmative action, because I'm sure at some point you might have gotten tired of listening to Solomon's voice. So I'm just here to give in that intonation. So thank you so much, our panelists. Maybe I'll introduce myself again for the sake of the people that were not here in the morning when we did introductions. I'm Dorothy Okemo, the Executive Officer of Access to Medicines Platform and the coordinator of Meta Kenya. And I have been working in the space of access to medicines for the last 23 years. I'm an advocate, a researcher, and also a trainer. And so before we start with the panel, I think it's also important for the panelists to reintroduce themselves and maybe say something that they did not say in the morning so that we can get on with this discussion.
Thank you very much. Good morning once again. My name is Emmanuel Mujuru. I'm the current chairperson of the Federation of African Pharmaceuticals Manufacturers Association, PAPMA in brief. And I'm also the chairperson of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association of Zimbabwe, PF. I also run a pharmaceutical manufacturing business in Zimbabwe. And yes, I've been involved for quite a long time, as far as I can remember, in the pharmaceutical manufacturing space, both as an employee and also as a business owner, and also as a head of manufacturing association at national level and continental level as well. And as rightly captured by Dr. Dennis Kivira, the challenges are common material among us, and I think it also has to be acknowledged that manufacturing associations have achieved a lot in terms of shaping the pharmaceutical manufacturing environment in Africa, and it's a work in progress. It's not something that you wish that it can be done and be completed, because it's a dynamic environment with constant challenges and constant demands, both in terms of the public health and also from a business perspective and economical and everything else. So it's something that I think we are quite engaged in, and it is always important that as manufacturers we have a voice that can be used, that we can project out there, so that we can shape the environment that we operate in and not allow others to be able to detect what is required by manufacturers. So in short and in brief, that's what I can say at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Good morning, everyone. I think it's still just about a minute to go, right? My name is Nazim Mohammed. I'm very, very passionate about pharmaceutical development in Africa. I am an African. I was born in this wonderful country. I've spent 45 years in pharmaceuticals. Very fortunate. I spent a lot of my early life with the big companies, Pfizer, GSK, Novo Nordisk. As you know, it's a very global industry. Again, very fortunate having worked and lived in the US, in Denmark, in Belgium, in the UK, and last but not least, 20 years in Uganda. Uganda gave me the opportunity of looking really beyond just making money. Because, you know, if I told you something, when I was the global head of marketing for Novo Nordisk in Copenhagen, So one of my jobs was to look at all the budgets for all the countries around the world, right? Which, by the way, meant enormous amount of traveling. But don't throw things at me, I'm just going to tell you something. When we went to the African budget, and normally it was done in South Africa, we would spend half an hour on South Africa and about 5 minutes on the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. That's how important Africa was to Muzungus, right? That, I promise you, has changed because all over the world there's massive pressure on health budgets, whereas when I was working for those guys, we had huge prices in Japan, in the US. We were making easy money. That has dried up. Now everyone's realizing that Africa is a sort of the next big place where we can make money, right? But I think they also realize that you've got to be a partner and not just a one-way thing. So I'm very passionate. Uganda gave me the opportunity really to get more into policy development. I was for many, many years chairman of FIAPM, and we did a lot of quite interesting things, and maybe we'll talk about that later. I was also the chairman of Uganda Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, and that allowed me to work with Maurice and Dennis, Rubina, to understand that there's more to health than just making pharmaceuticals, right? If you don't have the right policies, you don't have enough funding, you're not going to get anywhere. So I've been through a very interesting learning curve and feel really very privileged to where I am. So by the way, thank you for inviting me, Dennis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Right. First, allow me to say thank you, Dennis. Thank you. As he was talking here, and I thought, there goes the son of the soil of Africa. Because, right, I did say when I introduced myself earlier that I'm in academics as well. I teach pharmaceutics, I'm in the laboratory, and I always tell my students, pharmaceutics is politics. So when I hear stuff like that, on succession building, you see I'm mature, Dennis is young blood, I feel Africa has got hope, and so thank you very much. Right, now we're asked just to introduce, to